was unthinkable, but it's actually brought the whole family, my whole work, my whole relationship to another level that I didn't think it could go to. But if anyone is listening, there is another option. If you just with those two options, there is another option to explore your own body. And as soon as I'd learned the work and had this experience with the cervical orgasm, I was like, I need to teach it.
Welcome to Wendy Goes Deep. I am Wendy, and today I have got Nicola Parish on with me. And I am really excited to talk to her about today's topic, which is not going to come as a surprise to some of you who know me. We're going to be talking about cervical orgasms. So definitely one of my favorite topics. And if you don't know who Nicola is, she is an embodied female pleasure and wild woman circle facilitator in Cheshire, UK. And she, after having spent nearly a decade studying energy healing, Nicola has established herself as a specialist in facilitating the awakening and enhancing of more pleasure for women, magical humans, and vulva owners 35 plus. She is now known for putting the spark back in the bedroom in established marriages and long-term relationships. Everything she has learned and practiced over that time has been weaved with a roadmap, training, and embodied female pleasure so that they can experience pleasure, intimacy, orgasms, and sex, and have confidence in themselves and their body at any age. These teachings have been a lifeline during Nicola's perimenopause journey, and she believes everyone should have access to their body's wisdom and the magical experiences it can bring. She is also married to her husband for 20 years and 2 teenage daughters and loves the outdoors, walking her dog Ralph and connecting to her Celtic roots and healing. Her favorite food is homemade pizza and loves to travel to the sun. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you so much for having me, inviting me on. Really excited to talk about this. Really excited.
Me too. So, I mean, sometimes I kind of talk about like the background, but I'm thinking I kind of want to just dive in and start talking about cervical orgasms because especially as a sex educator, I don't know if you come across this too, I hear a lot of people talk about how cervical orgasms aren't really a thing and that it's really just all the clitoris. And so I would love to hear your perspective when you hear people say, no, it's just clitoral orgasms that we're having. Like, how did you discover cervical orgasms? And how do you know if you're having a cervical orgasm versus like a clitoral orgasm? I want to hear from you.
I love it. I love how we're diving straight in as well. And I always tell my clients, like, we don't start until the podcast ends. Like, we warm up to that conversation, we warm up to getting there. It's not the goal. But yeah, there's definitely been, from my experience, a very marked difference between the energy around the clitoris orgasm and around the cervical orgasm. And it was actually me having my very first solo cervical orgasm during me establishing I was in perimenopause that was really profound, really spiritual, felt really lit up, felt connected to everything. And I was like, this is how we turn women on. This is where we switch, this is where we switch the light. And it just filled me up with this sense of being full and like this energy of overflowing and giving. You know, when people say, share from an overflowing cup. And I'm like, yeah, I would if I knew what that felt like, you know? So first solo cervical orgasm, I was like, wow, this is that surplus energy that's there to give. And just with, so for those that say that they don't exist, and you know, all the work is about feeling your own body, getting to know your own body. There's a lot of things women have been told in the past about their own body. So this is really, and my experience to a cervical orgasm, I feel is going to be different to anybody else's. You know, I can describe what it feels for me, but I couldn't describe what it feels for you or one of my clients. And there is always, sometimes I'll even go to, was that one? Sure if that was one, you know? Because a graceful orgasm can be very fast and the energy's there and there's this peak. So then you've got the peak and the energy goes out. And then afterwards you can, you want to go, maybe you want to go again. There's just this energy, for me, like the energy goes out. Whereas a cervical, it's like keeping it in, letting it flow through the whole body. So yeah, does that answer a little bit of the question?
Right. So I'm excited to hear you describe your cervical orgasm because of understanding the biology. And I love that you mentioned women have been told a lot of things that are incorrect about their bodies. And one of those is very much tied to the cervix. So no shade on Masters and Johnson, who did so much benefit to understanding sex process and sex health and sex pleasure and all of that. Their work in their 60s. But the way part of how they did that, they interviewed a whole bunch of people. So this was really taboo. So it was really cutting edge. And as I said, like absolutely very thankful that they've done this work because they completely helped progress, sex education as we know it, now. However, there's an aspect to some of the research that they did that has done some kind of long lasting harm and, because of it. And one of it is about the cervix. So when they interviewed the women and by the way, these were all mostly young women, all college age for the most part. And, for the people listening who are older, we can probably all agree that you as a younger person, you as an older person, there's a big difference in how you connect to yourself and connect to your body. So unless you grew up with caregivers, family, or in a situation where you learn how to be embodied from a young age, most people in their 20s are so disconnected from their body. And part of this survey was about whether or not they could feel on their cervix. And so the end result was that the cervix was numb. And this information got put into textbooks, in OBGYN books, and even to this day, many women, when they go to talk to their doctor about different procedures with the cervix, they'll be like, oh, it's no big deal. Because they have this belief that the cervix is numb, when in fact, the cervix has 3 pairs of nerves. It's actually one of the most highly innervated organs in the body. And so this has to do with like the work that you do and also like, the work that I do. And it is about kind of dispelling this myth that the cervix is not a source of pleasure, because it is truly a source of pleasure. Just like the clitoris has nerves on it, the cervix has nerves on it too. And so this kind of breaking this myth about like where orgasms occur, I think is part, stems from this like long belief that only the clitoris is the source of orgasm, which is ironic to me also, because a lot of these sex educators will also talk about nipple orgasm. And so they believe that you can have a nipple orgasm, but only a clitoral orgasm. And they're completely ignoring the rest of the biology. And when in fact, orgasms start and end in the nervous system, and they're a nervous system function. So anywhere there's a nerve cluster, you can actually have an orgasm.
It's really interesting they found out about the numbness around the cervix, because that was often the case. And that was my own where I said we don't go, I follow a roadmap with the process, and we start off with like being in your body and feeling safe in your body, exploring what your body's like, exploring pleasure as a whole. It takes as long as it takes. Some people can get there quite easily. Some people have some stuff or some numbness. We call it the thawing out process, like the thawing out stage. And so when I went into like explore my cervix, I was like, go steady and go slow and take your time. And I have to say, in good old Nicola fashion way, we went straight in. I was like, I've not got the patience to wait for that, which we really did find numbness, pain, and the energy of being impacted by an ex-boyfriend that was I've never told anybody. It was like quite abusive. And that was all that energy was held on the cervix. So that's why when I went in to explore, it was no. So what you were saying, they've probably done the interview, and it could be the case for many women, could restore a lot of our trauma, a lot of what's going on for us, a lot of our stories in our pelvis and our hip. Because I come from this energy kind of world. I was like, well, of course, if that's still hanging around there since I was like 27, what the hell? That's and especially I've been together for 20 years now with my husband, and it was like I could, project the blame onto him when actually it's my own body that needed like love and attention and this release. So yeah, it can feel numb in the beginning, but with some love and patience and internal massage, not going in for the goal, and merely getting to know your body and vulvigating. And there's lots of different practices I do now. And because I've been through that of like going straight in, I'm really stressed when anybody, if you're exploring, go really, really slow. Because I literally cried for 3 days and had to have some energetic support to, now I can talk about the story and it's gone. And I'd never told anybody what had happened. So it's really interesting to me that that's what they found, that of course they would find that in the beginning, but it feels no.
So the cervix and the throat are connected through, it's called the deep fascial line. And from the time that you're born, there's an indentation that later becomes the genitals, and there's an indentation that becomes the mouth. And that line still connects. And so there literally, anytime you feel like you can't speak up and there's like energy flowing up through your body and you want to voice it, whether that's through tears, whether that's through anger, whether it's speaking your mind, like anytime that energy is coming up and it gets to your throat where you feel like it needs to be released and you clamp it down, that energy travels through the deep fascial line and gets stored into the cervix. If you are a male, it gets stored in the prostate. And so it's the same analogous, like body part. So it's not surprising that that people are so numb. Because now if you think about what happens when you are in pain, your body goes, hey, there's a pain signal, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, it doesn't actually matter. It gets processed in the same part of the brain, which is the periaqueductal gray. But if you ignore it, your body will stop sending pain signals and you will become numb. Because you're not addressing the pain. And so that's why the cervix is numb for most women, because they haven't addressed the pain of whatever caused that energy to be stuck there.
I mean, when you explain it like that, I love that you know the science. I mean, I am in perimenopause and I'd forget those names straight away, but the way women have had to not speak and not express their feelings, it's no wonder that this area of our body had been so ignored and left to feel numb. That's when the rage kind of comes. You feel the rage coming through, because turning 50 last year, being from that generation where we were, my mum didn't speak about anything. I mean, even now when I think of my mum, I kind of shut down on talking. We called it that department and would point to that department. And so, and her mum, and definitely it was never anything that was in my family, in my history. So no wonder it's been pushed down, could speak their truth and speak what they desire. Even now, whenever I ask a client or ask friends or, ask my community, what is it you desire? It gets stuck in. They don't even know what it is they desire or what they want even. And but that's like the place to start speaking what you want.
Yes. And I love that you, when you were talking about this is about creating safety. So I'm an and neuropleasure coach, and 80% of my work is teaching people how to feel safe in their body. That's it. Because when you don't feel safe, just neurobiologically, if you don't feel safe, you are tense. And you will keep holding that energy in. And you use the term energy. I use the term energy, and that is, the term that we use. And I know it becomes very elusive, but if you think about what happens when you get stressed, like we feel like, our face gets a little warm, our breathing picks up, there's all these different biological functions that happen. That's chemistry, right? And when there's a chemical reaction, there is, you put different things together, there's going to be the step that's used, and then there's going to be like the waste, right? From the experiment, right? For the combination. That waste, that's the energy that also travels through our body, and it gets stuck in the fascia. And the fascia covers every single organ, every single structure in your body. And it's this interconnected web that keeps our body together, basically. And your cervix is covered in fascia, and your throat is covered in fascia. And it travels through there and gets stuck and lodged. That energy doesn't just disappear, right? We know, I think most people watching this or listening to this knows that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. And so if you're not transferring that energy, it's stuck in your body. And a lot of people also don't realize this. If you think about like when you eat and you're taking calories, that's energy. Like we know it's energy, right? How are we actually releasing it? Like most people are not aware. It's through our breath. It's through our voice. It's through our mouth. It is through this circular organ that we have. And when we cannot express the energy through the throat, it travels back down and gets stuck in our body.
And this is why I think for myself, I was 47, I think, when I came across this work. And it was, perimenopause, now we name it. And I was very anxious. I was very stressed, very worried about the future, worrying, two teenage daughters, worrying about my relationship. I sat on the stairs thinking, how can I do my work that means so much to me and bring up children and have a husband? It was just like, I just sat on the stairs. Like, I thought the only option that I had was, do I stay and be unhappy or leave? And it just consumes me all the time. And I'd be I could feel it in the morning coming up, this feeling of like, oh my gosh, getting my feet out of bed and putting 2 feet on the ground. And those that know me, I mean, that is not me. I love life. I love living. I put everything into everything. So it was really like, I know it was in COVID, and I know it was really different times, but I usually can rise to whatever. And I just so grateful that this third option come in, of where I could look at myself, look at how to please my own body. Because if I didn't know how to please my own body, how am I expecting my husband to, or whoever your partner was like, it was such a revelation to feel safe in my body, come back to my body, come back to really feeling the emotions was there, not strangling the relationship like this to work, or, living in this fear that I've got to leave, and just to create some space around it, or create some space for like, leave the dishes, leave the washing up, and just go and spend 2 hours with yourself, which, I mean, just was unthinkable, but it's actually brought the whole family, my whole work, my whole relationship to another level that I didn't think it could go to. if anyone is listening, there is another option. It doesn't have to be that if you just with those two options, there is another option to explore your own body and then bring that. And as soon as I'd learned the work in orgasmic confidence and had this experience with the cervical orgasm, I was like, I need to teach it. Like, I was like walking around in dress, and like everyone's like, how are you doing? I was like, oh, well, what you been doing while in lockdown? There's like, oh, I'm sitting in a room. And I'd be having these amazing conversations on the corners with like women from all ages, like even in the 70s. There's one woman, she was retired air stewardess, and I heard of her at the cervical orgasms or in the supermarket going, I heard of the rhythms going, no, you know, like, you look really well. I'm feeling it, and it's the anxiety when, the stress when, with mom. I was sharing. I was like, you won't need to get to 47 to have all this gorgeous information I've got. You can have it now. Whoa, but it changed the way I communicate with my daughters and how I speak about it. So yeah, I get to talk about all that. I get really excited, but just that, even for perimenopause or as your body changes, and you said like, what do I desire now? It just takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit slower, but it's so much more deeper. It doesn't have to be more. Sometimes people are like, oh, I just want more sex, more sex. Well, what about if it was more meaningful and more deeper and more connected? It doesn't have to be more of something. It can just be a different experience. And,
Yeah. I know one of the things that, like, one of the reasons why I'm such a big proponent of Yoni Dearmoring and learning about cervical orgasms and, really doing this work to show up for yourself is honestly like the best thing for your health. And you hinted at it, right? That things were easier. Obviously, we know stress is like the number one killer of everybody, right? It's because your body's not safe. And when you're not safe, you're not able to give the energetic resources to digestion and repairing and all the different things that your body needs to be healthy. And while clitoral orgasms are amazing, they're fun.
Yeah.
They are surface level, and I do not mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a biological way. They are part of the nerve, the pudendal nerve. This is the same as the same nerve that connects a penis to. So just, for people to be aware of that. And it's a surface level. It has to deal with the extremities. And that's why sometimes people will feel like a tingling in their toes, even with a really, intense cervical orgasm. I mean, a cervical clitoral orgasm. Whereas the cervical orgasm is attached to the vagus nerve. And most people in wellness have probably heard of the vagus nerve. It is the nerve that connects our entire body together. It's like our breathing, our heart rate, all our digestive system is connected to the vagus. Basically, everything that is essential for well-being is connected to the vagus nerve. And people do things like breath work, cold plunges, all these different modalities. You tone the vagus nerve, and cervical orgasm do that. I don't know about you, but I really like that way of toning my vagus nerve.
And that was it. I was doing all the things, like so many things, and whether it be a spiritual journey, unraveling. I was just doing. It felt like I was doing everything. I'm sure it wasn't everything because there's so much more out there now. But even like Kundalini yoga, and now I've had the felt experience of it. Like it was bringing all the energy up and out, and I was still feeling frazzled and still feeling my nervous system was like, we want to bring the energy down. We want to bring the energy back down here so we can go into like a more relaxed and flow mode, but be able to go into go. So it was like, so I did, then you get grounded. I got really grounded to where I didn't do anything. So this for me has just been where I can show up as myself. I feel more like myself. I stopped overthinking. I stopped beating myself. I mean, I was a classic, beat myself up. People would tell me, stop beating yourself up, Nicola. I was like, yeah, it's great for telling me that. And then, cervical orgasms, I'm like, whoa, I don't beat myself up anymore, And to me, that is like been one of the biggest gifts to my mental, my mental well-being, And, yeah, it's lovely to reflect. It's lovely to reflect and share that.
I like to jump in with a little science there again.
I think this is why we've connected, because I have the felt sense and this felt sense of the experience to explain it, and then you filling in all the science of it, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I realize a lot in my conversations. I understand the science so well, but even though I have the physical experience, it's really hard for me not to explain it biologically because it's just such a part of my ethos, right?
I love it.
And so one of the things that you brought up, though, is how you were doing the breath work and the Kundalini and how it was bringing the energy up. And while that is a great experience, and I am a huge proponent of breath work, I'm actually, it depends on when this airs. Most likely it's right around my certification. I'm getting certified in holotropic breath work. So I'm a huge proponent of it. So like what I'm about to say right now, it's not like I'm poo-pooing on breath work. However, people do not know how to breathe all the way through their diaphragm and to their pelvic floor. And a lot of the breathwork training teaches these techniques on, the actual moving of the breath. But if you are not bringing your breath into your pelvic floor because you're numb, you forgot sensation there, you're not aware of it, you're disconnected, you don't even know you're disconnected from your pelvic floor, because if you're, having a clitoral orgasm, you don't think you're disconnected because, well, look, I can have an orgasm, right? Except for you're on the surface. You're not into the deeper part of the organs, the deeper sensations that only occur like in the cervix, the A spot, the U spot. You need those deeper areas within to get that sensation. If you're not able to feel those, that means you're disconnected. And when you do the breath work and you don't go all the way to the pelvic floor, you're staying within the more sympathetic range of your breath. Even if you're doing the long exhales, you got all the technique right. If you're not pulling your breath into the pelvic floor, that energy can only go up, and it doesn't have that full experience of the vagal toning that people are actually looking for. Now, some people figure out how to do it through the breath work, and that's why they finally get this relief because they're finally being connected to their pelvic floor, right? But some people really are so disconnected and they don't know it, but they struggle getting to the pelvic floor, or they need those hours long sessions to really connect in, or doing hot yoga or these different modalities that really, turn off their brain and get them embodied because of that disconnection, right? This is why I like cervical orgasm and this process of the slow awakening, because it teaches you how to connect to the pelvic floor. And then all these other modalities work so much better.
And it's really important, especially as we age, to connect to our pelvic floor and be aware of how it works and how we can support it as we move through into the next stage. Everything that we're doing now in looking after ourselves in our, in your 40s, for your 50s, we're looking after ourselves in our 50s, the 60s and beyond. And, keeping your awareness around your pelvic floor it's been super powerful to be connected to it, and where all the creativity and juice and the life force energy. My throat is crackling now. So I think come and spend some time with Belly. Well, yeah, it's really important. I've been doing quite a bit of work with different things.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. So I love that you're helping guide people, through this process of learning their bodies. I mean, it's your body.
And I think there's so much information out there now. This, like you're saying, these books on how to have an orgasm, or all this, or even what we said on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever your social media. I mean, there's so much of how we should feel, or what it's like to be spiritual, or what it's like to be a woman, or Wolverine. There's so many imprints out there that really finding, well, how do you feel? How do you feel? And that kind of remember that you've probably got through some tough times in the past, and your body does know the way. You know, I think I was getting a little bit reliant on all these things, whereas it's not really empowering. Where now I know I can really listen to the signals. I still ignore them. It's like sometimes it's good to ignore them. Like this morning it got me out of. I was like, I could go back to sleep, but I need to go and work out at 7. So I was really grateful that I ignored it and got up, got the energy going. But like before I called, I was feeling really tired. Like there was this tiredness that come over me. So I can take myself off to an embodied tea and check in. And it was like, no, it's not actually tiredness I was feeling. It was that kind of little bit of excitement for a new call and talking about this. And like I said, I was able to move through whatever was showing up for me before our call. And it's like knowing your own emotions, knowing how your own body feels. No one can tell you how you should feel or your emotions and I think that's been really powerful for myself and what I see for clients, especially clients that if they've some horrific, but women come to me with some horrific birth stories. I've done some deep work with women, so no wonder they're feeling numb. Yeah, I mean some medical stories on how they've been left, and we spend a lot of time going really slow. It's interesting because I did, but our body can release the trauma. It doesn't have to hold on to it. It doesn't have to stay in that way. I'm sure that you keep sharing your message and me coming out. I mean, if you'd have said to me, you're going to be talking about cervical orgasms on podcasts or in your, I was like, no way. It took me a good 12 months, 18 months to really, I can talk about this easily enough, but without the shame or all the stuff coming down on me. No.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that right now, because I'm thinking a little bit about my journey. So when I got started, I was purely focused on having different kinds of orgasms. I was not in this connected cervical orgasm, Yoni Dearmoring part at all. And I still, as I was learning about it and talking to people, I still would kind of like giggle. I mean, I laugh all the time anyway, but I would kind of giggle. I'd say vagina or penis. I would be like, kind of talking about it because there was still so much shame around, just having these conversations about body parts. Now I find it ridiculous because if I can talk about my elbow, why can't I talk about another body part? Right? If you talk about your throat, people talk about, oh, I have a tense jaw. Oh, do you have a tense pelvic floor? And all of a sudden the conversation changes. Like, it's a body part. Like, come on. Right? Why is it that those are the only body parts that, that's a whole thing, right?
I hold Wild Women Circles as well online. I do facilitate that where we do some embodiment. We do a Wild Woman like embodiment, a deeper embodiment practice, play with flavors, and then we do a ritual. And I've had friends reach out and say, it's not a sex stuff, is it? Sorry. I'm like, it's not. I have to say it's not. even though it's the beginning of it, it's the beginning, all the practice layer on each other. We just don't talk about the anatomy and the while doing circles, embodiment, feeling safe in your body and exploring like the range of emotions you can feel. But it's really interesting that keeps coming up. Like, just don't talk to me about that. And yeah, I'm like, oh, this is where the juice is. This is why you're feeling overwhelmed and anxious and all the things going on. Like when you push what's going on in your sex life out of your health inquiry, I don't think I've ever been to the doctors and they've said, so how's your sex life? That never come up, but it's so related. It's more like it's more connected than we know. So yeah.
Yeah. If you go into traditional Chinese medicine, it is actually, is it TCM or Ayurveda? Might be both, but I can't remember now off the top. Of course, now that I want to talk about it, it just, the fact just left my head. However, it's one of the main pillars, like libido is one of the main pillars of understanding someone's health. But if you think about it biologically, if people are struggling with libido, I don't have to know anything else. Just by them saying that, I'm like, I know a whole bunch of things about their system, because when you are feeling safe in your body, you are less stressed. When you are less stressed, all the other functions happen. When your body is in a state of wellness, you have high libido. Not excessive libido, but high libido. There's a difference between excessive libido is actually another issue. It's not balanced, right? But the average healthy person will want to have sex because that is the way we are biologically designed. Orgasms, in particular, cervical orgasms, are one of the most beneficial things you can do to optimize your health and well-being. And when you are in the process of getting healthy, your body's going to want to keep doing the things that actually make you healthy. And that is having connection with people, having the energetic release, all the things. I mean, there's so many things to why orgasms are so important for people. Even clitoral orgasms are great there too, but in particular, cervical orgasm, I'm not saying they're better, but they have a different purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's like saying, is your mouth better than your feet? No, like they have a different purpose, right?
So, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you find the time with teenagers and life to even connect with your husband? How do you find the time? And I was like, because I prioritize it, because this is how I fill myself up. It's great just going to the gym or working out or doing what you do, but this has to become as important as those things. Sometimes it is a cervical orgasm, not that we go in like that, but he knows that I need more time. It's more time for me than more time maybe for him. Sometimes we've not the time for both of us at the same time. Life is busy. Or how long is before anyone comes back home? Or then all afternoon, shall we spend some time? And then that's when, oh yeah, I really need that. So you get to, by knowing your own body, for me, I get to gauge when and what I need. And sometimes it can be a blend of them all. It doesn't have to be, we're gonna, have a cervical orgasm. It can be a blend of all the different spots. And that can feel quite magical as well. And enlivening. It's that kind of, there's a sense of peace that comes within the whole home as well. It's like there's a sense of peace, a sense of peace that is infectious. It is. Yeah, it is. Which I'd love to. I'm smiling because I'd love to be there more often. And then the next morning it's like, right, have you got this? Have you got this? And running around and doing everything. But it like brings the whole energy of the house to a level that's nice and relaxed. With as women, we have got that power to create that. which we've never been taught that, have we?
Right. So one of the things that, as I mentioned, I think it's the traditional Chinese medicine where they use libido, but Yoni Dearmoring is a really ancient practice, like a yogic practice, thousands and thousands of years. And, there's, Kama Sutra and different things where people kind of think it is, or they hear Tantra and they think it's a certain thing, right? Because that's the Western sexualized view of stuff. But when you go into the deep teachings of it, all of these different parts of the yoga traditions, they're all meant to work together for optimal health, right? It's not that you should only do Yoni Dearmoring and not do all the other stuff, right? Or it's not that you should only do this and not the other stuff, right? It's a practice that it's an integrated practice for health and well-being. And the Yoni Dearmoring is basically, slowly massaging out the cervix, and the yoni is the word for the womb. It's an ancient practice for health and well-being for female, and it got lost. Right now, there were other traditions, not just the yoga one, but all the Western ones were basically shut down. So there used to be priestess temples where they would teach these practices to the women of the village. So they would learn how to keep their health and well-being. But, that was a few couple thousand years ago when they decided that the priestess temples were too distracting from the monotheistic viewpoint. And so that's when they started being targeted. But this was a part of, of pretty much every ancient tradition, was the understanding that the internal organs of the woman are important and essential, and a place for, deep spiritual connection to the self and, to the other realm. It's interesting if you think about it, like what the cervix is. The cervix is the pathway from, the internal world to the external world. And one of the things that I found really interesting when I started going into the energetic kind of connections to the different organs, so I learned all different ones. One of the things about the cervix, because we know it's the root, and like yoga, you hear the root grounding, right? But it's also your place in society is really deeply tied to the cervix or the prostate. And think about all the times women's place in society, their voice had to be shut down. It's no surprise we have like a population full of numb cervixes.
Yeah, we have work to do. Yeah, work to do. And what I love about the work that I do, or the work, is that it meets women where they're at. And for anyone listening, and we're talking about all these things, this has been a process for us to get, this is a process to get here. And my mind has gone blank now. That's so funny. My perimenopause kicks in. But it's meet yourself where you're at. I think that was my train of thought. And I came in not through the yogic kind of tantric tradition. It's led me to find a teacher. I work with Nicola Parish now, who's passing down the Celtic roots. I work with her, which I've had a very safe journey into this work, which has always met me where I'm at. So I've always been able to explore for myself without any judges or imprints or anything. So that's been really good. I've really appreciated being safe with teachers, because I know there's a lot of misinformation that can come through, and a lot of abuse that's happened in some of the yogic traditions that have come through in those. So you don't have to come through from there to feel safety in your body, it can be for every woman to arrive here. And I think the more these conversations happen, because I think even like rejoin together, and then you go and check people pages that go and check, and I was like, oh, I don't know enough. I don't know. And I was like, have this really, this voice that comes in now that's like, really, Nicola, sure, are you sure? You know you know what your clients experience, you know what your body's experienced, and that is enough to share. And so just keep gathering all the information and feeling what feels right for you and learning from there, taking it from there, and not to be. I think one of the biggest things is the myths is what sexual confidence looks like, you know, and it's a flavor to get dressed up in different ways. That's great. But you can also be very sexually confident in your tracksuit. Yes, you know, I was like, when it's like, it comes from within these different areas to play with, but you feeling sexual confidence is something that only you can feel for yourself. It's not an outward image. It's not an outward presentation. Yes, you can go and play, but that kind of inner feel, you know, that inner confidence. And I often get the lovely ice cream lady was like, I just saw you walking down the street and you was just low. And then sometimes I don't feel like that, but it's always interesting when I get those comments, oh, you're really good. It's like, it's usually when I give myself that time to explore pleasure.
Yeah. I love that you brought up that it doesn't have to be through the yoga and tantric. That's actually not where I learned.
Yeah.
I learned it from a biological standpoint because I didn't feel connected to it. It wasn't my root. I felt a little bit like, I don't know. I just wasn't called. Like that's not my mind. My mind very like I'm a sci-fi junkie, neuroscience. Like, give me a research paper. That's the girl that I am. Telling me to do something without explaining why does not work well for me. I know it does for some other people, but it's never been I'm not good at following directions just because you say I should do something.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's why it's nice to meet and get to know as well, to understand. Yeah, I really appreciated your listening to some of your other podcasts. I've appreciated that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, I love these conversations because you do explain what I am experiencing. I only know how to explain it scientifically.
And which I think is just such a wonderful, juicy conversation because I can only explain it from as a busy, frazzled mum with two teenagers in perimenopause wanting to bring a relationship to life. I didn't even know that was what was going on because when I joined the program Orgasmic Confidence, I just wanted more confidence because I couldn't be more visible on social media and I couldn't get back to, that story. I was like, oh, just go in and I need a bit more confidence. I need to be able to speak more because it feels very cut off. Like I see a lot of people sharing what I know. Why can't I do so? We'll just join this for some confidence. And then I was like, why have we not been taught, Then there was like all this rage and then it was great home playing. I think it was one of the courses my husband was like, yeah. One of his favourite quotes is like, we've got pussy coming out the printer now because then we every time I print something off, there was more, this giant printer in the office, which was quite amusing. So it become where, I mean, to even go and say or like to tell him, I bought a cervical wand from, a cervical glass wand.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to share this with him? Because I'd explored it with myself. I got this amazing experience. How the hell, And I did. It was messy. It was not, it's not how I wanted it to be. But now it's just part of our connection together. And so, it always reminds me when I think I can voice something or share something. Well, you voiced that you wanted to do the last one, so you can voice anything you want, Nicola. You know, it's like, do you remember how you felt in that moment? Like, oh, I'll have to hide that from him. And I don't know, you don't want to hide things. And I do have another one that's especially for me, but that's another story.
We all get to keep our little secret.
Yeah.
I love that you're out there, that I'm out there, that there's more and more women that are out there talking, because, not everyone's gonna want to work with me, and not everyone's gonna want to work with you or the next person. And we need more and more voices, more and more people out there sharing their experiences. So that way the people that really do connect with them can find them and work with them. Like I do work with couples. Mostly I work with couples who are looking to, there's actually two parts to it. I work with men who often have some form of either like porn addiction or kink or fetish that maybe doesn't serve them well. Like there's no shame in it,
Yeah.
right? But sometimes we have habits that maybe aren't so useful for us, right? And so I work with them to help them develop, a different way that they feel, is more aligned with who they are or where their position is. So sometimes the men will have something that's going on, right? Most of the couples that I work with are heteronormative, not all of them, but that's, that is a big portion of them, right? Or that they're opening up their relationship and they're exploring things and still working on the communication aspect. And then the vast majority of the other clients I have are women that are not partnered. And so much of the work that, I see a lot of people out there like in the relationships, and they teach this work from a perspective of being partnered. And it leaves out so many women who aren't partnered, are like, well, how do I do this on my own? Do I have to wait to experience pleasure and have right connection until I'm in a partner? And so nothing wrong with it, because like people who are partnered are going to have a different perspective than people who are single. And I think it's so important. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your circumstances are. There's going to be someone that you can find to work with that's going to help you, create this connection for yourself.
And I think some of that comes down to who's your niche as well. I do work with women that are single, and they're single in their later in 50. They're single in later life. And whoever comes to work, which I'm sure you say the same, whoever comes to work with me, we always start with you and the self anyway, before we go into that comes later. It's like, thing I guess to look out for to working with someone. Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe being with them? Do you feel you can trust? Does your body trust being with that person? Because you're gonna, I love the name Wendy Goes Deep, because you're gonna go deep with this work. It is confronting. That is resistant. My goodness, there is resistance to doing that. And that's why we fill ourselves up being busy with time, and we've not got time for pleasure, because it's easier to not have time for pleasure than go deep and look at some of the root causes that block us from our pleasure. And then when you have this kind of conversation, it can do it as well. It's and sometimes there's this myth that the USA is further on than the UK, and I'm beginning to like not tell myself that, and that the UK is quite open. No, I call like the British upper lip kind of thing. We don't talk about those things.
There's plenty of closed people here in the United States.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who are super uncomfortable when I introduce myself as an orgasm and neuropleasure coach, and they're like, I'm going to go over there. And then the other people are like,
I'll share a very quick story. I was invited into a co-working event. So this was post-COVID, hadn't been out of the house, been through all this kind of, just not been in a working environment for this long. So I go in and I was like, I'll do the lightning talk. I'll talk about cervical orgasms. And this woman was like, come, come. And when I got there was men there. And I was, talk about jumping off the diving board in the deep, or jumping in at the deep end. I was like, I could have warmed up to, I'm not a great public speaker or on stage. That's one of mine. I hopefully can overcome, small groups or one-to-one. I'm good at, but big groups now. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to run for the door. I'm just going to run for the door. And then I did the lightning talk and come back into my body. Went to the toilets, come back into my body and did all the things that I needed to do. And then went out and everyone was just like, and it was the men that came up to speak to me after. Thank you for sharing. That will be really helpful to know. And I mean, it was like, yeah, this conversation, it just needs to be the norm. I think that's what we're trying to say, right? And
there's something about that what you said right now that I have to get this message again. I will say it a gazillion times. You know how we keep talking about it starts with safety with yourself. And when I work with men or partners of females,
yeah,
one thing that we start with is kind of helping them and guiding them on how to help their partner feel safe. If you start there, if you learn nothing else except for how to have your partner feel safe, your partner's body will know what to do. And it's not that, especially when you start talking about this with people like, oh, I feel safe with my partner, I'm not scared of my partner. Or it's not about that. It is the wiring and the messages throughout the female life that they're not safe. It's still there, present. It has nothing to do with the kindness or the gentleness or the, whatever of the partner that they're with. It's about helping that female's body to rewire toward safety. And then once you're safe, then you can move towards pleasure. And it requires that safety first before you move towards pleasure, because if you're not safe, you're on alert. And it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, how safe you actually are as the partner. If your partner doesn't feel safe, they're not going to experience those deeper orgasms. It's just
my
biologically not possible.
There's not more else I can do. It was like have a good relationship, have a good man, and it's like I don't know what else. It was just baffled, and like you say, it can be our history. I was in the, I had quite a party girl name and liked dancing and, Ibiza, and I've had my own stories that I've carried, but also that imprint and lineage that is run through us, epigenetics, the history of the fear of men running through our body. That fear can still be present. So it might not even be ours, it might not even be ours, a story that's running through us. So healing your lineage and healing way, way, way back, it's going to take time. And so, yeah, it's great that you're sharing that, man. Because it's not them in the room. It wasn't the men in the room. It was It was the history of what, the stories that I've been told. Like, you don't talk about the least in front of men even kind of thing. So, yeah, there's a reason for me sharing that story, because it just it comes through at the end. So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because, as you know, in general, the process is actually quite simple, what needs to happen. And I remember when I started learning about these different things and going, but really, it's really going to make a difference? Because how screwed up I actually am, right? How can this little simple practice really work? There's some major trauma that needs to be unraveled here. There's no way this simple practice can have that big of an impact. And oh my God, is it life-changing?
It is.
experiences?
Yes. I mean, I'm sure, because I did, after that event, it was like, why did I put myself through that? Why the sweats and why do we keep finding a way to share this message when it's uncomfortable, it's confronting? At times, from it, at times it really has been. And what it brings up for other people, for other women, I've had to go, it's been a barrier to go through. And we just know how important it is to keep sharing and demystifying, pleasure, we're all like, and it's like, can we just like look at it from another perspective? And I often hear like, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. I'm like, which, no judgment here on any of it, because I've been there. And then we've never been shared, but there's more. There is always more to female pleasure. Women's, men's, there's always more. Always more for the men as well. It's not just, it's just we've been squashed down so much. It like feels like revolutionary kind of thing. But it isn't. By me being more connected with my pleasure, the effect that it had, or the ripple effects that it has in different relationships, like, because it's very heart. So a lot of my work's heart. We start with the heart, a lot of heart-centered love, and yeah, I spending a lot of time there for people, and just how it can. I've had great conversations with more now about it. Oh, did you be on stage talking? Oh, and then don't tell me anymore. It was like, don't talk about it anymore. But yeah, be curious to see how more women connected to different levels of pleasure. There's always more. What change for that, for the whole of the world, for the whole of our societies? How almost it's going to turn it the other way around from the direction it's been going in. Like, what would that be for the community?
I'm going to bring embology again.
Good.
Yeah. I always say the best gift you can give the world is to learn how to regulate your nervous system. We know this instinctively as parents. When you are in a calm state, your kids are in a calm state. We know this with everybody. If someone's freaking out around you, if you can stay calm, they're going to be less freaked out. If you react, they're going to be more freaked out. And this is how humans work. This is actually not just humans. This is how mammals work. It's called a social engagement system, and we connect with the other mammals around us. And the practice of the cervical orgasm, of the Yoni Dearmoring, of the self-massage, of the slowing down, creating safety, we are teaching ourselves how to regulate our nervous system. And when you have a regulated nervous system, you show up differently in the world. Not just in the bedroom, in the world. It is honestly the best gift you can give the world. Like, if someone listening to this or watching this and you're going, should I do this? Can I not? Is this really the right thing for me to do? It is a gift for the world if you learn how to regulate your nervous system, how to connect with your body and stay present in your body. That is one of the best gifts.
It is, because it just feels like we don't all be just learning these tools to stay regulated, and there's more chaos out there, So it does need to grow. It does need to grow so we can all be in that different space. So yeah, but I have to really bring it back to the self, because it blows my mind when that journey of worrying about everyone and everything all the time. Yeah, I'm just journeyed through that, but it's how important it is. It's how important.
I mean, think about some of the things that you have said here today about what it was like before. You were really hard on yourself. You were stressed. You were wondering if you could even how you're going to even stay in your relationship, maybe sitting, like you said, it's sitting on the steps, like
Yeah.
how can I handle life? Like just being frazzled and all of those things that, you know, are not pleasurable.
Having really like, I think it was like, well, what else do you want? You've got a lovely home, you've got everything at hand. You've got all the means to do things, and what is going on, especially with what was going on in the world, and you're still not. There's another layer of guilt on myself,
Right.
and
And
I
then,
think that the cervical orgasm has took away. Yeah, it's
right.
taken that feeling away.
It's a regulated nervous system. That's, it is, and unlike, say, a breathwork session where you're, do a group breathwork session. Remember, once again, getting trained, not talking bad about breathwork, right? You're in a group breathwork session and you're regulating, you're feeling in your body and you're releasing and you're doing all of the things to help regulate your nervous system. And it's amazing because it's such an amazing tool and modality to be able to do that. However, it's not always accessible to everybody. Not everyone can go to these like retreats or go set aside a 90-minute breathwork session, with an individual or a group, or, the drive time and you're a busy mom. If you can have this practice that you can incorporate into your life that has the same kind of benefit, except for the added benefit of truly creating safety within yourself, learning the different nuances of how your body works. So you're not having to depend on the breathwork session or depend on going to the gym or to the retreat or to the meditation class, bringing those little habits and positioning of your body and learning, there's little things that you just learn about yourself. Like, oh, it feels better when I bring my shoulders back to here and not all the way to here, or, or I like it when I go slow over here. And then when if you are partnered and you're able to bring that practice in with your partner, 2 hours with your partner where you're both getting a regulated nervous system versus, you having to go there and them going to go there and maybe still not regulated together. Call me crazy, but I think regulating your nervous system together is a really good thing to help you a marriage together.
Yeah. And then it was never a third option out there. It was never something that I even could consider, like relationship therapy. I don't know even if that was something we needed. Well, clearly not, because I always say we're work in progress, even after 20 years, but I'm glad you've mentioned like the going on retreat and going on workshops and because I think I would go to those days and then come back and like want everything to change. Like it was like taking you to like a peak and then coming back down. And so this is like these really simple practices, and, 5 minutes a day. I mean, I do one of my best. I've not had time while the conditioner's in my hair, in the shower. I can do an embodiment of this and come back into my body just while the conditioner's on. And it's not like I've got to get myself to like say a studio and a workout. That having to do something for something. It's like finding a practice. I think with anything that you do, finding a practice that you love and enjoy can show up for, and you can do. And it's the practice my teacher Steve always says with me to us is it's the practice that you do every day, not the 1 hour session every week or the 1 hour retreats you go on. Those little things that you do in between. And yeah.
If you just add it up, if you start, so like part of what I work with people, so I have ADHD. Even though I'm talking fast now, believe it or not, I used to talk even faster. I could not, even focus necessarily to have really good, deep conversations because I was always thinking about what I was going to say next. And these little practices that I started bringing in, to my existence, and they're out there, like, not like I have like the magic bullet that, magic bullet. Different uh, but all these little kind of pieces, while you're in the shower, while you're getting ready into the shower, while you're in the bathroom by yourself, while you're driving, while you're making your coffee, right? Learning how to bring pleasure, not necessarily set, but pleasure into your life. Moments of noticing. You start cultivating a genuine practice of pleasure that accumulates to way more than spending 2 hours in meditation throughout the day.
And it closes that gap. So then when for myself or like clients that in couple, that gap's closer, you've got more access. It doesn't take as long. So I think sometimes like, it sex with the partner becomes a chore because it takes too long to relax into it and they've not got time for that. If you're doing the practice during the day and noticing what your body feels, when you said about the shoulders, one of my first things was chopping carrot at home, cooking. I was like, why am I chopping carrots? Like someone's going to come and run in with a gun and like, or come and just attack me. And so I've been holding my shoulders like that. So you begin to notice the practice, you begin to notice in everyday life. You begin to notice like, why I haven't noticed. And then wondering why this is all tense and crunched up. Whereas now it's, that was just chopping carrot. So yeah, it's those little practices.
Yep. And then when you get to combine them with the wild women retreats or the breath work or the different things that you do to like bring more health and wellness, those simple practices just create a better foundation for wellness. Like it's all of it put together. Like it's not one thing, right? We need to look at all these aspects of ourselves. And the cervix is a body part. You wouldn't ignore, your elbow. I mean, maybe we do ignore elbows, but we notice them and we're not scared to talk about them. We're not, like.
Just spend time just exploring your elbow with touch.
Yeah.
With the first you spending the touch and self-regulation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm very much enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. No, and we didn't know what to expect at all, did we? So it's been really gorgeous connection and combination. I hope anyone listening gets as much enjoyment out of listening as we have with Maya. And then sharing our very personal stories, that it is a bit easier to share.
Yeah.
So we'll reach many people, but it's easier than standing on the stage for now.
Sure. If people want to learn more about you, follow you, all that stuff, how do they find you?
So yeah, on social media, I'm on Instagram, Nicola Parish, pleasure coach, or Facebook, just as Nicola Parish. And then I have got a freebie of from travel to freedom and meditation for any of your listeners if they wanted to listen to that. They can connect and stay connected on there. But yeah, or drop me a message in any of the social. Let me know how it's going. That'd be great.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and keep spreading the good word and work and doing what you're doing, girl, because the world needs it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I'm sure, hopefully, we get to go deeper on what's next. I'm sure we could talk about this all day.
Thank you for joining for today's episode. I hope you found the conversation interesting, maybe even a little inspiring. And if you're curious about how to work with our guest today, check out the show notes because I'll have all the links and resources there. And if you're curious about how to work with me or what I offer, you can check out my website, wendygoesdeep.com, to learn more about what it is that I do. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you for a little favor. Growing this community is only possible with support from people like you. If you could take a moment to like, subscribe, or maybe even share it with a friend, it helps more than you know. And until we can go deep again, stay curious and keep exploring.